So when we say, why are they so comfortable losing? Because the truth is people like Nancy Pelosi, they don't lose. They win either way.
Are you guys both in California?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in the Central Coast and he's in the Central Valley.
Okay, so you're in a completely different part of the state where the political activity really ramps up, which of course is LA and San Francisco. And the one thing that I thought was so essential when it came to Democratic politics in the state that I would imagine was probably a very big sticking point for both of you guys. Look, at the state level, it's very hard to find anybody who's really worth their salt. But I do think that Katie Porter was a very worthy person to make it to the upper chamber. And Adam Schiff is the embodiment of everything that is wrong with the Democratic Party. Yes. And the fact that he is such a filthy fuck and he put all that money behind Hager to basically get the nomination on the GOP side so that he can have a free walk and no one's the fucking thing. That should have been the end. Yeah, that should have been, as far as I'm concerned, if Trump goes after his ass now for the shit that we know that, and we know that he's a filthy fuck, and that there are probably things that they could probably get him in legal trouble on. I don't fucking care. Like at this point, I don't care. Let Trump have you. Adam Schiff made it his mission in life to legally destroy Donald Trump. If Trump even gives him 10% of the shit that he threw out in the past 8 years, let him fucking have it. He deserves it. He earned it. And the fact is that the Democrats in the state of California got fucked over because I do think Katie Porter would have defeated him in a runoff election because she would have had energy behind her, and she probably would have had Barbara Lee's support, and that may very well have made the difference.
That was what I was going to mention. Like it was such a frustrating thing because ultimately, I mean, if I remember correctly, because we did cover all this on the channel when it happened, it was just such a frustrating thing. I think even if one or the other, Barbara Lee dropped out or Katie Porter dropped out and endorsed one or the other, it still wouldn't have made up enough ground to overtake Adam Schiff for that primary, unfortunately. But either one of those two, I mean, obviously, Barbara Lee, I would argue, is the most famous thing she's known for is being like the lone vote in opposing the Iraq war, like the approval of sending troops to Iraq. But and of course, Katie Porter, like there's numerous things. Either one of them would have been a fantastic addition over fucking Adam goddamn Schiff.
Yeah, he's a failed screenwriter, just like Ben Shapiro.
Shocking.
No kidding.
Weird. Something about those failed artists. I don't know. It's like the kids who grow up with the animal violence towards animals and they end up becoming school shooters.
It's like online
it's
conservative media.
Politicians.
They're full of them. The online conservative right and whatnot media full of those like Hollywood rejects and whatnot. I think the Daily Wire especially is full of them.
The one thing that I think you guys should be looking for in the next 2 years, especially if, as pathetic as this may be, but get ready for it, if Kamala decides to run for governor of California. So that's going to clear the field on the Democratic side. However, Butch Ware, who's already been a guest on our podcast, is going to be coming back on Monday. If I were you guys, especially because of the jungle primary system that you have in California, I would consider getting behind him and seeing what type of juice he might be capable of creating. Because honestly, and Jen, I think you would agree, if Butch had just a few million behind him, I think he would cause a real shitstorm in that state. He is a real, like he's a real leader. Like he has.
He's a teacher at UCSB?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, so that's right down the street from me. That's funny.
So
all right, I'm gonna hit him up. I know some people over there.
He is the complete opposite of Jill Stein. With all due respect to Jill Stein.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's got that whole Black revolutionary vibe going. And that, I think, can appeal to people that might otherwise think that the Greens are just kind of like mansy-pansy. You know what I mean? Like, the Greens have had a marketing problem forever. Their name alone, and again, I'll vote for the candidate, but they have a branding problem. The Greens have a branding problem.
Yep, they sure do.
And they have other internal issues. But I think somebody like Butch Ware would help with their branding and what they are. And
Yeah,
I
because
think
I don't think Jill Stein's done the party any favors. There's just too much dirt out there about her, and just like her. Uh, yeah.
The biggest problem with Jill Stein, bar none, is that she comes off like an uber intellectual from the Northeast, which she is.
She is.
Yeah.
So if you want to have some semblance of sort of like a revolutionary moment outside of the two-party system, somebody like Butch Ware is infinitely more likely to deliver it, but he's got to have at least somewhat of an infrastructure to play with. If he has it, I think he could be very dangerous. I believe that.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, when it comes to third parties, it does start, I think, at the state and local level, and this is the case like across the country. Like, I think even people who are more akin to politics and following politics generally, they only look at the federal aspect, who's going to be president, and to a lesser extent, who's going to be in the Congress and the Senate and whatnot. I don't think a lot of people really take as seriously down ballot races, let alone propositions, your city board and local positions and whatnot. That is just as essential, because I mean, obviously it's local politics. You should be worried about who's representing you locally, and I say this because I'm from the town. You guys know who Michael Tubbs is? Does he sound familiar?
I think I've heard of the name.
He was the youngest mayor ever, right, in U.S. history or something like that?
So yeah,
I think it was the youngest ever. He's 28.
Okay.
Yeah, he was mayor of a town of 320,000, Democrat, and he ended up being booted by a Republican, I think, the last election. But he garnered such a national profile. Like, he was on the Daily Show. He championed a pilot program offering $500 to it was basically like Andrew Yang's thing, the universal basic income, and it was a pilot program, limited, but it was successful. And now I believe he's trying to make a run for lieutenant governor in California.
He is, yeah.
So like you can start small. I mean, because
that's a perfect example, Statpet. So do your due diligence on this, guys, and maybe if we do another stream someday, then I'd be interested to hear what you think of this guy, because yeah, he's got the right ideas, but he does not have the ethos of an angry competitor. He's another nice guy. He's too approachable.
And maybe that's where the yin and the yang between a Ware and a Tubbs could actually be effective.
Right.
And we've actually seen it work, because if you guys are familiar with Kenneth Mejia, he became the comptroller of Los Angeles, and he's a proud Green Party member, and no one talks about him because, of course, he's outside the two-party system. So it can happen. It can. But you have, like you said, Dieter, it's actually, a lot of it really comes down to, obviously it comes down to whether or not you're corrupt. I mean, I really think it's just that simple. But once you get past that, I do think personality is a huge part of it.
Yes.
Bernie had a way with his personality that was his own style, but it appealed to people. Trump has his, he appeals to people. RFK has his, he appeals to people. Tulsi has her way, especially as a veteran, that appeals to people. You just have to see it. You have to understand. It's like, you may not agree with them politically, but you can see why people like it.
It's casting.
People don't understand that a lot. I don't think people understand that a lot about being a candidate. Like,
who the fuck liked Kamala? Like, honest to God.
I mean,
nobody.
She was kind of she was kind of a DEI.
That was. Let me tell you guys, if she got in there, that would have been the greatest heist in the history of politics. There would have been nothing like it. She did literally nothing. With all due respect.
A lot of people, there is no respect to be due. There's no respect for Kamala Harris. She sticks her finger in the air, figures out which way the wind is blowing, and then she's like, okay, I'll go that way. She went back on Medicare for all. She went back on weed. She went back on minimum wage hike. She went back on student loan debt, fracking. I mean, you know, she starts
She
talking about a
became a
Glock.
U.S. senator. She became a U.S. senator because she decided to get in bed with Steve Mnuchin. She wasn't going to prosecute One World Bank, even though the fucking San Francisco district attorney's office told her, fucking nail this guy's ass to the wall, wouldn't do it. He has never donated to a Democrat once in his life. He gave her $300,000 for her campaign. So it's like, as far as I'm concerned, you can see that that trajectory was completely and utterly contrived. It was not real. It was the most flash in the pan thing I had ever seen. And whether he would ever admit it publicly or not, you know that Gavin wanted her to lose that fucking race. He's like,
yeah, he did.
No way. I ain't having it. I'm running for president in 28. You're not getting in my way. And that was probably the same for a lot of other people. You know, they're all corrupt, but don't get me wrong. Whitmer was thinking that. Pritzker was
Wes
thinking
Moore.
that. Bashir was thinking that. And of course, Shapiro was thinking that. So...
Yeah, I don't think Shapiro's big time. He's not box office. But I tell you who is the one guy that I do have hope for in 4 years, because, you know, the freak show circumstances are the only way that the Democrats ever win the presidency. You know, Clinton in 92, Obama following W, and then, of course, Biden with COVID. That if it's not Gavin, hopefully it's Wes Moore, who's a really nice-looking black guy out of Maryland. And he's not, I wouldn't call him progressive, but at least he's got that strong leader, the angry competitor type. I don't know. I don't see a whole lot of people with this ethical credibility we're looking for.
Because they're not Democrats.
Right.
It's only going to take, I'm telling you guys, it's only going to take a little of that economic populism, just a little, just a little bit of it. You give a little of that economic populism to the masses, J.D. Vance wins in a walk in 28. Because the party is in a really, really bad way. Really bad way. And now that Fetterman is floating that he's going to run, it's like...
Fuck that piece of shit.
They're really... It's like they're... It's almost like the two parties are trying to flip, like legitimately, like they're trying to flip. And is it going to happen? I mean, listen, in some ancillary way, I think it has happened. But at the end of the day, they're both bought by corporate special interests, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
that's it.
They've both been dragging the Overton window to the right while holding hands for several years now. They're basically trying.
Really, that's when that started.
Oh
with Clinton and triangulation. This is what I think might be the secret, though. If we're going to have a revolution along generational lines. Is I'm saying in my most upcoming essay that blame is underrated and forgiveness is overrated. I think blame placed in the right place is nothing more than the appropriate assignment of responsibility. So I say if we could unite the country, there's only one way to get people who don't like each other to get along, right? And that's give them a problem they can't solve without working together. Or in an American political context, it's give them a common enemy, right? The Republicans and Democrats used to work a lot better back in the Cold War. Oh, the Cold War, the good old days.
They're trying it again. How's that working?
So now this is the next war. This is the culture war. It's no longer race. It's no longer gender. It's generation. Fuck the boomers. Fuck them all. Fuck the liberals. Fuck the conservatives. Fuck the conservatives for their evil. And fuck the baby boomer liberals for not being strong enough to stand up against it. And then I was talking to a guy who worked for Carter, and he's pretty high up in Democratic Party circles after the election. And I was like, dude, she did what Hillary did. She played to the center and to anti-Trump Republicans following Labor Day. And he's like, well, she probably wouldn't have done as well as she did if she hadn't have done that. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? 6.3 million votes, dude. She got 6.3 million fewer votes than Biden did in 2020. That's Bernie's coalition. That's all the people who were voting for Bernie who showed up for Biden because Bernie asked them to. And then they just didn't show up this time because it was too much of a pain in the ass to vote. And they were like, I don't know who this bitch is. I'm not coming out for her. Some California prosecutor.
Yeah.
I mean, a prosecutor of all types of people too.
Right.
Like you couldn't get someone out of labor. Like,
and they
Jesus
doubled
Christ.
down on it. They doubled down on it, like the prosecutor against the felon, as if somehow that's a selling point to most people that law enforcement is the direction that we should be going.
As far as I'm concerned, if I was still an active supporter of the Democratic Party, I would have wanted a ticket of Fain O'Brien. That would have been my ticket.